Skyrush is an Intamin wing roller coaster located at Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And no, this is not your typical B&M wing coaster such as Thunderbird and Gatekeeper, or this isn't an Intamin wing rider such as Furious Bucko. This is an Intamin wing coaster with basically a traditional hypercoaster seating, but just with two wing seats that sit over the edge of the track. Lots of these Intamin hypers and these new style gigas are known for their crazy ejector airtime and intensity. And let me just tell you that Skyrush is no different. In fact, Skyrush is probably one of the best roller coasters that I've ever ridden. People overuse the word hauling and overuse the word airtime machine, but this coaster very easily fits both of those categories. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my unfiltered thoughts and review of Skyrush at Hershey Park. This coaster sits in the hollow of Hershey Park. If you visited in 2019 like I did, this coaster will be directly to your right as you're entering the park. This coaster is literally sitting on top of Comet. I mean, the amount of space that they had to work with was crazy tight and crazy small. So this coaster is very compact. And this coaster station, riders actually enter and exit on the same side, which is half the reason why this coaster even fit in this area. This coaster is also located very close to Great Bear and Super Duper Looper. And as we all know, this coaster is indeed a hyper coaster. It stands at a height of 212 feet, has a drop of 200 feet, has a top speed of 75 miles per hour, has a maximum vertical descent of 85 degrees. This coaster is said to hit 5 Gs in that first valley and negative 2 Gs on that second airtime hill during the hot summer days when it is moving fast. And one thing that I noticed about this coaster right off the bat is that in some of the POVs, and especially when you're watching this thing off-ride and even in person, it doesn't look as fast as it feels. When you're watching this coaster, everyone hypes up those first two airtime hills that drop and the stangle dive a little bit. And, you know, you look at it, especially those elements after the second airtime hill, and you're like, really, that's it? And a lot of the front row POV videos, they take them earlier in the season, so I guess it is running a bit slower, but they just don't look very fast through that second half. But when you are on this thing, it feels like you are moving through a small neighborhood at 90 miles per hour. That is the type of intensity that you're going to be receiving from Skyrush. And many times before I ride roller coasters such as, Top Thrill, Dragster, and King Ka, I'm a little bit nervous before, and even on some drop towers I get pretty freaked out. But Skyrush is the first coaster where I've actually been nervous during the ride experience. During that second half, I was not expecting this thing to be this strong in the second half. My very first ride was on a back left wing seat. And let me just tell you, the airtime was just as good as I had expected because I was expecting crazy good airtime, and that's exactly what I got. But this coaster was so much more intense and had such strong laterals, way stronger than what I was expecting, because that second half feels so much faster than it looks and than what's described. And personally, like I said earlier, I was only expecting 3 or 4 elements to be stand out, but I think every single element on this coaster, I think all of these elements are in the same tier of insanity. If I were to rank like worldwide coaster elements, all of these would be S tier or S plus tier. So now I'm going to go through the full experience of Skyrush, go through element by element, giving you guys a first-person perspective of this roller coaster. So you're going to walk through the hollow and enter under that legendary Skyrush sign. You're going to choose the front row or any other row, which I don't know why they separate them so far back. You're going to enter your very crammed station, pull down that famous Skyrush lap bar, which we will get to later, and you're going to start slowly ascending, and then you're going to just rocket up that lift hill. And I mean, you absolutely rocket over it. I'm pretty sure this thing takes about, 9 or 10 seconds to get up to the top. That's pretty freaking crazy. And now we're going to get to the drop, which this is where things were very weird for me. See, on my first ride, I was expecting this drop to be absolutely bonkers. And I started cresting over the top of the lift hill, and it felt like a B&M Hyper. I'm going to be honest. It was a little bit disappointing. But then we hit this bump, and I can't emphasize the feeling that happened once we went over this bump, because when you start cresting over the drop, it feels like a B&M Hyper, but then you just hit this one moment And the strength of this airtime, I can't emphasize how absolutely insane it is. You really feel like you're going to die on this drop. This is by far one of the best drops that I've ever experienced on a roller coaster. Might not be the longest lasting, but it is definitely the strongest in terms of like physical negative G's. So then you're going to hit this first turn where you'll get some really nice positives, and you're going to head into your first airtime hill, which just absolutely throws you into the air as expected. You're getting sustained ejector airtime. You're going to hit a left turn where you're going to come into your second airtime hill, and which this is probably one of the best moments on the ride. Definitely a little bit better than the first one. I found that there were a few other elements that were honestly extremely close to the second airtime hill. So then you're going to hit these two stangle dives, and now I'm not really which one is the stangle dives, but they're both going to be turning to the left. One of them is high and one of them is low. But oh my gosh, if you are sitting on the back left wing seat, you're going to get a mixture of crazy like airtime and also some of the strongest laterals that I've ever received in my life. People have said that these stangle dives, or this one stangle dive, or I don't even know, both of these just gave crazy laterals. And people who have ridden both this and Maverick have said Skyrush's stangle dive is way better than Maverick. And again, since I'd only judged this coaster based off of POVs and off-ride footage, I was thinking these people were nuts. But they were absolutely right. This thing just absolutely jammed you to the side. It was freaking wild. This is where I was scared. This is where I had to start holding on, because this is the first time I've been a little bit freaked out during a roller coaster. I was absolutely in shock. And then you're going to hit this twisted airtime hill, which again, this thing just throws you around. It's hard to see in the off-ride footage, and it's especially hard to see in the POV, but it feels like Steel Vengeance's off-axis airtime hill towards the second half. You are just getting thrown to one side, and your legs are also just getting mobbled by that freaking lap bar. It is absolutely nuts. And then you're going to hit the final bunny hill before you turn into the brakes. And again, this is another element that just takes shock and just throws it right in your face. I swear, Intamin was like, you guys want shock? Here you go. This thing is absolutely wicked. I'd say this element is just as strong as that second airtime hill. Go ahead and call me crazy, but this thing threw me completely off guard. So then you're going to kind of meander and pop up into your final brake run. And, you know, right off the bat, the first thing that I noticed is, okay, this ride is a little bit short. However, as I rode it more and more, it started to bother me less and less, because, I mean, considering how much I love rides like Storm Runner and Top Thrill Dragster, which Storm Runner I'll talk about in a later video, it didn't bother me all that bad as we rode it more and more throughout the day. The one thing that did bother me about this coaster's layout is just that time that you take between the last airtime hill and the final brake run. After that final airtime hill, the ride's basically over. It doesn't really do anything else, but you really want that last turn to just yank your neck, and it doesn't. So I guess that's one thing that kind of disappointed me. Also, the pop into the brakes kind of threw me away. But I mean, other than that kind of boring ending, there was not a single dull moment on this ride. This ride did not let up until the very end. It was absolutely wicked intense, crazy airtime, laterals, positive G's, and just moments of shock that you wouldn't really expect, especially when you're sitting on the back left wing seat. Now, I will have to say I do prefer the left wing to the right wing, as well as I'd prefer the left wing seats to the middle seats any day, because with the middle seats, you're going to be getting all that good airtime and those positives, but that left wing just gives you those laterals, and I'd say slightly more positives. So if you guys are wanting a more intense ride, definitely aim for those left wing seats. And in terms of the front or the back, I definitely take the back. Although the front was a ton of fun, the wind in your face was awesome, I'd still take that back left wing seat on any day of the week. Now guys, this is the one controversy that Skyrush has. It's these freaking restraints. Personally, call me insane, I like them. Yeah, the thigh crushing was bad, and it would have been better if it wasn't as tight. However, they didn't really take a lot away from the ride experience. These are still lap bars. I'd rather be stapled in a lap bar with tons of exposure than an over-the-shoulder restraint. And let me just talk about this exposure. I felt more exposed on a back left wing seat than I do on a front row for a B&M Hyper. Like, you really feel like you're flying on this roller coaster. If these things weren't so tight, this would be the absolute closest thing to you flying on a roller coaster. I mean, this coaster really is just you and the air. It just doesn't feel like, I can't even describe how open you feel on this roller coaster. So for that reason alone, I don't think the restraints are all that bad. However, if this coaster were like more tight and you were to feel more restricted, then yeah, I'd complain about the restraints. So like I said, the tightness didn't even bother me that much, but if you're someone who doesn't like tight restraints, you probably won't enjoy this ride that much. So I can definitely see it. But like I said, it doesn't bother me at all. And one more minor thing before I give this thing a final score. This coaster does have a bit of a shakiness to it. And you guys are going to call me crazy again, but it just adds to that like insanity, out of control experience. Like, this is the most out of control roller coaster I've ever ridden until I ride rides like Ejaneka, I-305, and X2. I think this is the closest I'll get to the most out of control roller coaster, because this thing really, there's nothing you can do. Even when I was holding on for dear life on my first ride in that back left wing seat, I mean, there was nothing I could do. Just the sheer nature of this coaster took me. I really wish that there were more coasters like this out there. So for its final score, this thing's getting an obvious 10 out of 10 for me. I mean, this has to be one of my personal favorite roller coasters. I don't think I've ridden anything that feels as out of control that this does. Not even Steel Vengeance and Lightning Rod feel this much out of control. Those rides really are more complete rides, and I guess they're objectively better. But in terms of personal favoritism, I would say that this is definitely where it's at. Skyrush definitely hit me right in the sweet spot. And therefore, that's why I believe that Skyrush is a 10 out of 10 roller coaster. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to drop your thoughts on Skyrush in the comment section. Be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you all later. Peace out.